Today is a special day because every day is a special day. Hi, my name is Daued and thank you for welcoming me into your homes today. I'm very happy to see you again and I hope you're happy to see me too. Before anything, I want you to say something with me and trust me, it's going to feel so good. Are you ready? Alright, here we go. It's a new, beautiful, peaceful and positive day today. So I'm going to forget about all my worries and I'm going to enjoy this day. I hope you're feeling better now. Today we will continue our talk on Christopher Silvester's The Interview. In the previous session, in the previous video lecture, in the previous one we learned part 1 of Christopher Silvester's The Interview. Today we'll be talking about part 2. In part 2 we have an interview. We're going to read and understand an interview. It is the interview of Umberto Eco. Okay, it is the interview of Umberto Eco. So we are going to read a conversation between an interviewer and an interviewee. Who is an interviewer? Yes, you're right. Interviewer is the person who asks questions and the interviewee is the one who gives the answer. So the interview that we are going to go through right now, here the interviewer is Mr. Mukund Padmanam and interviewee is Umberto Eco. I repeat, the interviewer, it means the person who is going to ask questions would be Mukund Padmanaban and interviewee is going to be Umberto Eco. So I'm going to read the conversation between them exactly, literally, word by word, letter by letter. So here we go. Please pay attention. Mukund. The English novelist and academic David Lodge once remarked, I can't understand how one man can do all the things he, meaning Umberto Eco, does. So here the interviewer Mukund has begun and he says that David Lodge, who is an English novelist and academic, he once said about you that I cannot understand that how Umberto Eco can do so many things. And let's see what would Umberto Eco reply. Umberto Eco says, maybe I give the impression of doing many things, but in the end, I'm convinced I'm always doing the same thing. He's saying, oh, maybe I give that impression. Maybe that's what other people think about me, that I'm doing so many things, but really, I'm just doing one thing. I'm just doing the same thing. And then the interviewer Mukund asks, and which is, meaning, and that is, meaning, and jo ki hai? Eco says, now that is more difficult to explain. I have some philosophical interests and I pursue them through my academic work and my novels. Even my books for children are about non-violence and peace. You see the same bunch of ethical philosophical interests. And then he says it's going to be a little more difficult for me to explain, but my interest is in philosophy and the books that I write is about non-violence and peace so that children can learn good things and children can be a better human beings in the future to come, which is really a need of the world today, that children should be a better person, a better human being in the time to come. The next generation should be better than this one, should be more peaceful than this one, should avoid violent activities. Okay, all right. So and then I have a secret. Did you know what will happen if you eliminate the empty spaces from the universe? Eliminate the empty spaces in all the atoms. The universe will become as big as my fist. Similarly, we have a lot of empty spaces in our lives. I call them interstices. Say, you're coming over to my place. You are in an elevator. And while you're coming up, I'm waiting for you. This is an interstice, an empty space. I work in empty spaces. While waiting for your elevator to come up from the first to the third floor, I've already written an article. So Umberto Eco replies that I work in empty spaces. He's trying to say that he does not waste time ever. Whenever and wherever he finds time, even 5 minutes, even 2 minutes, even 3 minutes, he tries to make that time a fruitful time. He tries to utilize that time. So he says that if we have a lot of empty spaces in our lives, I call them, and what does he call it? He calls them interstices. And what is interstices? It is like a crack or small spaces. So you are coming over to my place. He says to the interviewer, Mukund, that you are coming over to my place and you are in an elevator, and while you are coming up, you are in an elevator, and while you are coming up from first floor to the third floor, in the meantime I have written an article. In the meantime I would have finished my article. And then he also laughs by saying this. Mukund, the interviewer says, not everyone can do that, of course. This is not everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody will be able to do that. Not everybody will be able to utilize the time in the manner that you have just done, and you have just told me about it. That while I'm coming to see you and I'm in the elevator from first floor to third floor, in that amount of time you would finish an article or you would write something really nice. That's really, really amazing. Not everybody can do it. But the important thing that you and I, that we can learn here, is that we should always try to make our time a fruitful time. No matter if we have free 5 minutes or 10 minutes, no matter if we are free even for 3 minutes or 2 minutes, we should try to do something that would make us better, something that would make our time a fruitful time. Okay? So, not everyone can do that. Of course, your non-fictional writing, your scholarly work has a certain playful and personal quality about it. It is a marked departure from a regular academic style, which is invariably depersonalized and often dry and boring. Have you consciously adopted an informal approach, or is it something that just came naturally to you? Now here he is asking another question, that your non-fictional writing, your scholarly work has a personal quality about it. It's quite different than the other work, and it takes away from it is a marked departure from a regular academic style. See, it is different from the regular academic style of writing, your non-fictional writing, which is a little different than the academic work that you do. And it also sometimes I have felt that it is a little informal approach to something, or it just came naturally to you. So he is asking the question to Umberto Eco about his style of writing, that he also writes academic and he also can do non-fictional. So what is it that what is it so special, and how does it happen? How does he do it? Does it happen naturally? Does it come to him naturally? Let's see the answer of Umberto Eco. Umberto Eco says, when I presented my doctoral dissertation in Italy, one of the professors said, now here the word doctoral dissertation, it means thesis. When you do PhD, when you go for a PhD, that's when you are going to write a long essay about everything that you have done, about your study, about your research. That is called a doctoral dissertation or thesis. The degree or doctorate degree, which we also call PhD. Okay, I hope you will be able to do it after growing up. If you have a dream to have this title to be associated with your name, Dr. Daued Ali. Okay, so if you will do PhD, you can have that doctor instead of Mr. with your name. Okay, so one of the professors said, scholars learn a lot of certain subjects, then they make a lot of false hypotheses, then they correct them, and at the end they put the conclusion. You, on the contrary, told the story of your research, even including your trials and errors. At the same time, he recognized I was right and went on to publish my dissertation as a book, which meant he appreciated it. So now he is sharing an incident about while he was doing PhD. He is saying that Umberto Eco is saying this to Mukund, and he is sharing this incident about his time of PhD and how a professor said to him that scholars learn a lot from certain subjects, meaning some people who are doing PhD, they learn a lot about a certain subject, especially in the area where they are doing their PhD, and then they make a lot of false hypotheses and false assumptions, because they are trying and trying to find out and doing all kind of research on a particular subject, and then they correct themselves, they correct their mistakes, and at the end they reach a conclusion and they put the conclusion together. While what Umberto Eco he did a different thing. He also wrote about his errors, his trials and errors. He also wrote the entire story about the difficulties he faced during the whole process of PhD. He wrote about the difficulties he faced. He wrote about all the trials and errors. He completely told the entire story truthfully, and the professor really appreciated it. So at that point, at the age of 22, I understand scholarly books should be written the way I had done. So he now says that I was only 22 years old, and then even then I understood and I knew that the scholarly books should be written the way I did. It should be written that way, by telling the story of the research, that you should tell the story of your research, how it started, what did you do, whom did you meet, who inspired you, what happened, and this happened, and that happened. That was an error, that was a mistake, that was successful, that was nicely done, that was a problem, that was solved later on. So you should write everything, you should tell the entire story of your research. That's how it should be according to Umberto Eco. By telling the story of the research, this is why my essays always have a narrative aspect, and this is why when I write essays and when I write story, they have a narrative aspect, they have a narrative style, like a story is being told. Narrative aspect meaning the style of writing in which a story is being told. When you will read, when you will hear, you will feel like you're being told a story. Okay, so here we are. And this is why probably I started writing narratives, novels so late, at the age of 50, more or less. And then I started writing narrative novels at the age of 50, at around 50, when I was 50 years old. I remember that my dear friend Roland Barthes was always frustrated that he was an essayist and not a novelist. His friend, and he is telling the interviewer about his friend Roland, who was an essayist and not a novelist, but he wanted to do creative writing, he wanted to do creative work, and he also wanted to become a creative writer and write stories and write novels. But unfortunately he died before he could do so. And I never felt this kind of frustration. I started writing novels by accident. I had nothing to do one day, and so I started. And then he says, I started writing novels accidentally. It was not my intention. One day I was free and I had nothing to do, and I started writing, and that's how I began. And he also told about his friend, that how his friend also wanted to do the same kind of work, but unfortunately he passed away and could not do anything like that. So Umberto Eco, how did he start writing novels? One day he had nothing to do, and that's how he started. Okay, novels probably satisfied my taste for narration. So he has this desire, he has this willingness within him that he wants to narrate, he wants to express, he wants to tell stories. So that is also one of the reasons that he started writing novels. Mukund, talking about novels, from being a famous academic, you went on to becoming spectacularly famous. After the publication of The Name of the Rose, you have written 5 novels, against many more scholarly works of non-fiction, at least more than 20 of them. Umberto Eco replied, over 40. And then Mukund is like, oh, over 40? Among them, a seminal place of work on semiotics, but also most people about Umberto Eco, and they will say, oh, he is the novelist. Does that bother you? And then the reporter asked that, most people, when they hear about you and when they hear your name, Umberto Eco, they say, oh, Umberto Eco, the novelist. Does it bother you? Does it hurt you? How does it make you feel? Does it, affect you in any way? Let's see his reply. He says, yes, it bothers. He says, yes, it means it bothers him. Yes, because I consider myself a university professor who writes novels on Sundays, because I think of myself as a university professor and I only write on Sundays. So it bothers me when people say, oh, the novelist, I am a university professor and I write only on Sundays. I write novels on Sundays, and it's not a joke. I participate in academic conferences and not meetings of pen clubs and writers. I identify myself with the academic community. And he says that I think I would rather want people to think of me as a university professor, because that's where my association is. I'm more associated with academic community than I am with the writers and with the pen clubs. I attend important academic conferences instead of pen clubs and the meetings of writers. So definitely I'm definitely a university professor, and I would want people to recognize me as a university professor and to say that I am a university professor. But okay, if they have read only the novels, I know that by writing novels I reach a large audience. And then he says, but it's okay, what can I do if they have read my novels and if they identify me because of my novels? You see, by writing novels I'm able to reach a larger audience. I'm able to reach so many people. People get to know me. Thousands and thousands of people get to know me because of my writings, because of the novels that I write. I cannot expect to have 1 million readers with stuff on semiotics. So the academic work or the semiotic work that I do, I cannot expect 1 million readers. I cannot expect to I cannot expect that 1 million people would be reading that stuff. So it's fine if some people, read my novels, and some of them call me novelist. That is fine. So Mukund then says, which brings me to my next question. The Name of the Rose is a very serious novel. It is a detective yarn at one level, but it also delves into metaphysics, theology, and medieval history. Yet it enjoyed a huge mass audience. Were you puzzled at all by this? So he is asking the question that when after the success of your book, and the name of the book, the novel is The Name of the Rose, were you puzzled or were you surprised about the success of it? Umberto Eco says, no, I was not. Journalists are puzzles, and sometimes publishers. And this is because journalists and publishers believe that people like trash and don't like difficult reading experiences. He says a little harsh thing here, but he might be true. He says that some journalists, and he may be true, some journalists and publishers believe that people like to read trash. Just like these days, people like to watch trash. Since it's an interview, from the past, back in those days, reading was a great thing, was an exciting thing for people. And there are many readers in today's world also, but people watch these days a lot of. Consider there are 6 million people on this planet. The Name of the Rose sold between 10 and 15 million copies. So in a way, I reached only a small number of readers. He is saying that there are 6 billion people on this planet Earth, and he was able to reach a small percentage of readers, a small number of readers. 10 to 15 million is being considered small in comparison to 6 billion. But it is exactly these kinds of readers who don't want easy experiences. So they are the ones, they don't want easy experiences. They want to read the kind of stuff that I write. And then he goes on to say, or at least don't always want this. I myself at 9 p.m. after dinner watch television and want to see either Miami Vice or Emergency Room. These were the popular TV programs back in those days. So the interviewee, Umberto Eco, he used to watch these programs after dinner at 9 p.m. It was his preference. He is sharing his preferences now. I enjoy it and I need it, but not all day. But I can't watch it all day. I really like it, I watch it, but I can't watch it all day. Last question from the interviewer. Could the huge success of the novel have anything to do with the fact that it dealt with a period of medieval history? The answer from Umberto Eco is that is possible. First, let me tell you another story, because I often tell stories like a Chinese wise man. He says that, let me tell you a story, and he says that he has this habit of telling stories, and he tells stories like a Chinese wise man. My American publisher said, while she loved my book, she didn't expect to sell more than 3,000 copies in a country where nobody had seen a cathedral or studies Latin. So I was given an advance for 3,000 copies. Her publisher thought that his book, his novel, would maximum be sold to 3,000 readers. Maximum 3,000 copies of it would be sold. So she paid advance to Umberto Eco for 3,000 copies. But in the end, it sold 2 or 3 million in the United States. So a lot of books have been written about the medieval past far before mine. He says that a lot of books have been written on the same subject before mine. I think the success of the book is a mystery. He thinks that the success of his book, The Name of the Rose, is like a mystery. Nobody can predict it. I think of it, if I had written The Name of the Rose 10 years earlier or 10 years later, it wouldn't have been the same. Why it worked at that time is a mystery. He says that if he had written the book 10 years later, it wouldn't have been a successful one. If he had written the book 10 years earlier, it wouldn't be a huge success. He says if he had written the book 10 years later, it wouldn't be a huge success. It was successful in that particular time only. And what was the exact reason behind it? He says it is a mystery. It was a mystery for him. That's what he says. So what have we learned from this interview? We have learned that you and I and we all should give the interviews very coolly and very calmly, with a calm mindset. Okay? And we have also learned from Umberto Eco that how we should work in empty spaces, that how we should try, because actually, if I tell you about me, I find this day of 24 hours a very short day. I often wonder, I often think that one day should at least have, a day should have 48 hours or 30 hours. The number of hours falls short most of the times. So we should always try to find free time. Whenever we have free time, we should make that time a fruitful time. I repeat, whenever we find free time, we should make that time a fruitful time. Alright, so this is it for today. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you very soon again. I really enjoyed spending this time with you. Peace be with you. God bless you.